Thank you for coming to the very last movie of Ebertfest 2024. There's another person that I forgot to thank, Ralph Rother. I hope I pronounced your name right, Ralph. Ralph Rother, thank you. And he did the logo. If you like the new Ebertfest logo, he was kind enough to work with us to do it and kept doing, and you'll see it on all of the merchandise back in the East Lobby. Thank you, Ralph. And So some of you have been asking, what are the dates for Ebertfest next year? And I'm not supposed to say this because we don't know. We don't know whether there will be one next year. But we're working on it. And if there is one, we will send out a letter to all of you. I just wanted to be transparent and open. We've had a great 25 years. I've loved, like I said, over and over, every day, the community and the family and the friends that we've made here. I love that you are so open and welcoming to our filmmaker guests. No matter where I am in the world, when people hear about the Ebertfest Film Festival, the directors who have been here, the producers who have been here, the actors who have been here say they love this big screen at the Virginia Theater. They love you, James Bond, the projectionist, and Joaquin. They say in this town, they found real warmth. And you know, I talk about the FEC principles. People say that they actually do think about things like forgiveness, empathy, compassion, and kindness, and that they want to go into the world when they leave here. People said they've made friends, book clubs, and film clubs, and everything. I have to tell you, it's changed my life too, because I can't just talk the talk, I have to walk the walk. And after I leave here and I go back and I try to do things that have some connection, that's what people want. Whether it's respect, warmth, knowing that you're appreciated, knowing that I see you. Roger went to the conference on world affairs for 25, 30, 40 years, and he said that one of the things that people really loved is when somebody said, "How are you?" And they would say, "I see you. I see you. I recognize you. I recognize the light in you. I recognize your humanity." That's what we're saying. And that's what we try to do here at this film festival. So I want you to know it's more than films to me. It is life. and it's life affirming. Michael Barker talked about when someone dies, like Jonathan Demme, whom I adored, and he was I think one of the great human beings on this earth. Not even talking about his filmmaking, talking about him as a human being. And when we leave here, that's what I want us to do, to be closer. The world is in such a state. Sometimes I despair. But I say that one person can make a difference, can start turning things around. And when I leave this film festival, that's what I try to do. Yeah, maybe, I'm tired, and some days I don't want to do things. And after Roger passed away, you helped me get through that. I think he knew that month that he wasn't going to be here. He planned every single film for that film festival. And he made sure, I forget if that's the year we started with the marching bands. He wanted the bells of midnight. He wanted an Orson Welles. He wanted to have the film where someone climbed up the hill. Every film. And that's the year Tilda Swinton was, I think, sitting with us. And we were sitting back there weeping because she had just lost her mother, and I had just lost Roger. And we said, Roger called this the temple of cinema. Let's get up and bring joy. Let's not sit here and weep. Let's bring joy and connect with people. That's what life is all about. I feel at this point in my life, I don't need much. What I do need is to know that I can make a difference in somebody else's life, that if somebody is suffering, I can help alleviate their suffering. If somebody is living a life without love or without joy, if I can do anything to bring a little joy to their life, that's what it's all about for me. And I wanted the 25th to be special. I am so sorry that we didn't do more things. We had great films, great filmmakers, I'm glad, but I wanted to have more celebrations. And this year, we didn't even have all the food trucks, and it was cold outside, and we couldn't sit out and walk, just a lot of times we just sit in front and have things in the plaza. But so many of you still took time to go visit Roger in his chair out there. And I know he appreciated it. And I know sometimes some of you may think I'm a little kooky for talking like that, but you know what? Life goes on in another form. Of course, you know, this isn't on that script, so I'm going to get back to the script soon, but I wanted to be honest with you. We just don't know. And as soon as we know, we're going to let you know, but I have to let you know from the very deepest part of my heart, I am so grateful to you for coming on this journey with us every year. Thank you. To introduce them? Okay. And now I'd like to introduce our filmmakers tonight. Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski are screenwriter, producers best known for creating postmodern biopics with larger-than-life characters. They coined the term anti-biopic to describe the genre they invented, movies about people who don't deserve one. They are uninterested in the traditional great man story, focusing instead on obscure strivers in American pop culture. Among their numerous credits, these are the films most admired by Roger, my late Roger. Ed Wood, The People vs. Larry Flint, Man on the Moon. More recent projects include Big Eyes, Dolomite Is My Name, and the acclaimed miniseries, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story. The team has won numerous honors for their work, including Emmys, Golden Globes, PGA, and WGA awards. And I love the story that they met in film school, and they've been a dynamic duo ever since. Will you please help me welcome to the stage Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski.
Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!
There we go. Thank you, Chaz. It's a real honor to be here. Roger Ebert was a real hero to me when I was growing up. I was raised in South Bend, Indiana in the 70s. It's about 90 minutes outside of Chicago. So Roger was like the god of movies. I actually got to meet him when I was 12 years old. He came to South Bend to talk about Ingmar Bergman, and I went to the lecture, and afterwards I got into an argument with him. We actually argued about, I think, whether Pashavana or Shame came first. We were arguing about the Bergman filmography. And what was great about it was, I think I was wrong, but he didn't treat me like a little kid. He actually treated me like a fellow film nerd, and it was really great to have that sense of like, oh, I belong to this weird film community. And what was amazing about Ebert, he was so big even before the show at Siskel. When I would come into the city to see a movie, and I would go to, the Biograph or the Three Penny or the State Lake, they wouldn't put the names of the actors on the marquee. It would just be the title, Ebert, 4 stars. So he was what was selling the movie to Chicago people. And so when we started making movies and Roger embraced our work, it meant so much. I mean, when he gave thumbs up to Ed Wood and Larry Flint and this movie, it was just like that. I felt like we had really made it.
What did Gene think?
Gene was friendly.
Oh, Gene liked it too. Okay.
I always liked Roger best.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the story behind Man on the Moon is the movie that we kept trying not to write. We wrote Ed Wood, and it got made by Tim Burton, who did a lovely job. And then suddenly we're like, all right, we should write more of these weird movies about real people. And we were sort of going through all these just strange magazines and papers we had, and we started talking about Andy Kaufman. And I mean, we love characters who have a lot of passion. And Andy just loved show business. I mean, as you'll see in the movie, for him the audience was the enemy, which we found very interesting. But Andy has all these personas, and we couldn't figure out what the movie was. And so we said, no, this will never work. It can't be a movie. So we gave up. Then we wrote People versus Larry Flint, and we worked with Milos Forman, and that was a good experience. And then a couple years go by, and then one day Milos calls, and he's like, do you know Danny DeVito? We're like, no. He says, Danny's going to call you. We're like, oh, okay. And like in the 90s, Danny was the biggest producer in Hollywood. And yeah, he had just done Pulp Fiction and Get Shorty. I mean, he's great. And so we're like, okay. So Danny calls us up, and he's like, do you know Andy Kaufman? We're like, Andy. So Danny was friends with Andy on Taxi. And so Andy had Danny live through a lot of these crazy experiences, and Danny and Milos were at Michael Douglas's 50th birthday party, and then Danny started telling Milos Andy Kaufman stories, and Milos was like, we should have Scott and Larry write a movie. So Danny calls us up, he says, we want you to write this movie, and we're looking at each other like, and he says, well, what do you think? We go, yeah, because we already knew it was a bad idea. And he says, okay, I'll call Universal. So he just calls up Universal, and because he was his big shot, Universal said, okay, we'll just pay Scott and Larry to write a movie. So we hadn't even had a meeting. We hadn't even talked about it. We're like, oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? Because all we knew was it was a bad idea. So Andy's manager, George Shapiro, who it gets very confusing. Everyone plays somebody else in this movie, but Danny plays George in the movie. And George was still friends with everyone in Andy's life. And so basically George made the phone calls, and we spent 6 months meeting Andy's dad, Andy's sister, Andy's brother, all his girlfriends, Lynn Margulies, who lived with him, the whole cast of Taxi, all the people from Transcendental Meditation. I mean, anyone who ever, and then most importantly, Bob Zamuda. And everyone would just come to our office and just tell us stories. And we're like, these stories are amazing. They're crazy. They're so funny. And this goes on for 6 months. And then we try to write it. And there's still no movie. And we freak out because we never had a meeting. It was like such a weird job. And we call up our agent. And we said, we're going to give them back the money. And he got so angry at us. It's like, you guys are losers. And he just hangs up. So we're like, oh, shit. We have to write this thing. I mean, we were so scared. So we at this point, we've spent a lot of time interviewing everyone. So we're friends with Lynn Margulies, who's played by Courtney Love in the movie. And we call up Lynn and we go, we don't know what to do. We don't know who the real Andy is. And she says, guys, there is no real Andy. And we're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. So that's the movie we wrote. So we said, we're going to write Citizen Kane backwards. We're going to write a movie where you're trying to get to know this guy, and it's an onion, you keep peeling layers off the onion until you get to the very end of the movie, and he's hollow. Ooh, there's nothing inside. And we thought that was really cool. So that is the movie we tried to write. Well, hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll come out and talk afterwards.